Hi, my name is Natalie and welcome to my channel Knitting-a-GoGo, and today I want to talk about designing and knitting my own pair of socks. Now, as a knitwear designer, I've never actually designed a pair of socks and knitted them. I've only ever knitted other people's patterns for socks. Here's a few examples of socks that I've knitted in the past. Just a couple. I've knitted a lot more than this over the years, including some vintage socks as well from some vintage patterns, as you can see here. But I've never actually designed my own, and I'm not sure if that's because there are just so many sock patterns out there, so it's easy just to kind of maybe knit other people's patterns. I don't know, but as a sort of challenge to myself as a knitwear designer, I thought it'd be really nice to actually design my own pair. And what got me into thinking about designing my own pair of socks was the fact that I was recently teaching at the Good Stitch in Goring at an embroidery workshop I was doing, and I was really intrigued by some yarn that I found there, or really liked, that they had for sale, which was this, it's called Bumpy yarn, see there, and it's finger in weight 4-ply, 100 grams of this, and they call the shade Gale, see there. So this yarn was, I think, mainly designed for sock yarns. So I thought it'd be really nice to maybe make, I really liked the colours, I love those colours, so I thought it'd be really nice to design a pair of socks. Now, I don't have, like I said, any experience really designing socks, only knitting them myself. I've knitted socks from the toe up, top down from the ankle, so I've done all different sort of sock techniques in the past, different kinds of shaping on the feet, with short row shaping, German method, other methods, with ribbing on the heels. I've done lots of different styles, and I thought, where do I begin really with designing my own pair? So I found this lovely book online that's, when I started looking into this, which is called the Sock Knitting Bible, as you can see here. And this book is by Lynn Rowe, and it says everything you need to know about how to knit socks. So I've had a little read through this book, and it looks really straightforward. I think the author has written it really, really well. There's also some patterns, like actual sock patterns, you can complete at the end as well, I think. So I think it's going to be I think it'll be quite straightforward for me to design a pair with my sort of previous knitwear design experience, and it's just going to be a fun new thing for me to try. So I thought I would document it on my channel just to sort of show you my process really, and with the help of this book, and what I kind of end up designing and coming up with. Now, at the moment, I'm not sure whether I'm going to do any kind of cable or lace pattern or anything like that. They might just be kept fairly straightforward, purely because it's quite a really variegated sort of coloured yarn, and I think it would be nice just to kind of have that sort of colouring just as is. It's quite exciting in itself. If it was like a plainer pair like this where it's got more cabling, then I'd understand that, but I think I might just do stocking stitch. I'm not entirely sure. I might put some lace in the ankles. I'm not sure yet. This is the fun thing where I get to kind of sit down for a few days and just work on them and design and sort of see what appeals to me really as I make them, as I go. And I was just trying to find some examples. There's some like variegated yarn, stocking stitch ones there that you can see. So the first thing to do is to write out an approximate pattern. It says here to like draw around my feet and measure them. So I'm going to be doing that. So they're going to be personalised for my size. And then I'm going to wind the yarn into a little yarn cake as well. And then I will need to do some swatching to see how that kind of looks. Again, I'm conscious of what I've got here, so I can't sort of do lots of swatching because I might run out just to make the actual socks. They're probably just going to be ankle length, so I may probably have enough anyway, but I probably will initially do like a stocking stitch swatch just to see how that kind of looks, although it's going to look different on a wider piece of knitting, but just to get an idea of it. And then, yeah, I will start looking into the design and measurements and working it up and then knitting it. So I'm going to crack on and look at doing that now. So I first wound my yarn into a yarn cake using my manual wool winder and also my wooden swift. So I have my yarn cake spun, and before I look at designing my actual socks and working out the pattern with the help of this handy book I have here, first of all I'm going to get a feel of what I'd say is the fabric of the sock. So I'm going to do some knitting first with a couple of different needle sizes. So this is this consists of 75% wool and 25% nylon, as you can see here. And it says on there fingering weight 4-ply. So I've decided to try out knitting the yarn with a 2.75mm needle and also a 3mm needle as well. I've decided for the actual socks I'm most likely going to do them in stocking stitch rather than add a pattern, because the yarn is quite variegated with lots of different colours going on. I think if I did a lace pattern or a cable pattern, it might get lost in this kind of yarn. I think this yarn's quite good for just plain simple stocking stitch, and since it's my first pair as well, I just think that's a really good idea just to try that without overcomplicating it for my first design. So I'm going to do a flat piece of knitting first. I'm just casting on some stitches now on the 275mm needle, just to get a feel for how the stitches look on these, and also I get an idea of the stretch as well, because I think I'm going to, from looking at the book, they do recommend maybe adding some negative ease to your foot size if you want a more snug fit for your sock. So I'm just going to do some of the knitting now, and I will check in shortly. I've just knitted a little flat sample here just to see what that looks like in the 275mm and the 3mm needles, and I've decided the 275 looks much better. It's a slightly tighter fabric, and yeah, I just think it just looks a lot better, and I'm loving this variegated yarn, if you can see here. But I'm really pleased with how that's looking. So what I'm now going to do is knit the actual tension square or tension swatch with the 275mm needles, but I'm going to knit it in the round, and the reason being is because I'm going to be knitting the socks in the round, so I need the actual tension to match as if knitting in the round. If I was to knit it in the flat, the tension might come up slightly different, so that could affect the overall fit of the actual sock on my foot. So I'm going to do that now. So I've done my workings out for the toe part, and also just increase into the main part of the foot where I then knit it to the heel. What I'm doing is I'm going to knit them from the toe up, I've decided, and I've worked out my tension square and everything like that. I've knitted in the round. So I'm knitting on 2.75mm needles, and my tension square measures 28 stitches and 38 rows over 10 centimetres. So what I've decided to do with the help of this lovely book, the Sock Knitting Bible, I'm going to use the recipe here for the tarp socks, I think, but to my measurements. So instead of using the examples of the sizing and the stitches on here, I'm going to work out my own ones and then use this as a guideline for knitting the socks. So with this particular toe up sock method, we're using, which I've done in a lot of socks in the past when I've knitted other people's patterns as well, is the Judy's Magic cast on. So it's sort of cast on over 2 needles, and this is like the wrong side where it's got like the pearl like bumps there, and this is the right side that has like more of a stocking stitch. So I've cast those on, and then I've just knitted 1 row. So on the first row, if you're familiar with this method, you knit into the stitches normally, and then the slip stitch on the next needle when you knit round normally, and then you knit into the back of the stitch just on the first row only, because they're kind of at a slant, they're at the different angle where you've wound them onto the needle, and then you get the whole thing, the slants of the knit stitches to hang right, and then you knit correctly, not through the back of the loops every row. So now I'm going to be doing the toe increases, which I've worked out for my measurements is going to be every other row for a total of 22 rows. So increasing 4 stitches on each needle, so 2 each needle, 4 stitches in total. So I'm going to get on and see how that works and how that's looking. So I've knitted the foot part of the sock so far, and I'm really pleased with how that's fitting. I'm really pleased with it. I didn't design it with too much negative ease, so the stocking stitch isn't sort of stretching. It fits really nice so far. So the next thing is to work the heel and work out the calculations for that. So I will check in after I've done. So I've now fully knitted these socks, and this one I just thought I'd show you is what they look like before I block it. Now what I like to use is one of these sock blockers, as you can see here. You normally get 2 in a pack so you can block them together. But what I've done is I thought I'd just show you what they look like once they're blocked. And as you can see, I really think it's worthwhile in getting these sock blockers, because you can just see the difference here in how it just shapes the sock really nicely. So if I show you the other one here, you just don't have all this sort of, almost looks a bit misshapen at the moment from all the, you know, shaping you've done on the heels and everything here. So side by side, this is kind of what they look like together. So definitely worthwhile getting these sock blockers, which I've always used when I've knitted socks in the past from other patterns. I just think they're really good. So this is how the sock looks on the sock blocker, as you can see here. And what I will do is, on my ironing board with my iron, I will just lightly steam this, and it just presses out and shapes it all around this block. So like I said, it will look like that, and I normally leave it several hours before removing it from the block, and then you get this lovely nice crisp sock here. And here are the finished socks. I decided to knit them to ankle length as I didn't want to run out of yarn. I really like the variegated effect of the yarn when knitted in stocking stitch, so I didn't knit any lace or cable pattern into the sock. I decided to finish the top of the sock with a twisted rib cuff where I knit into the back of the loop on every round of the knit stitches. I incorporated just under 5% negative ease into my sock width, and I'm really pleased with the nice snug fit of these socks. And because I didn't include too much negative ease, the stocking stitch sits nicely around my feet and doesn't stretch. It was really nice designing a pair of socks to my own personal measurements, and I'll definitely be designing more socks in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.